Hey everybody. Today I'm going to do something that I've seen some people on YouTube talk about doing to their trucks, and that is changing the gauge cluster and upgrading it to the Cadillac Escalade gauge cluster. And it's really easy to do. I've had one in my truck for like over 3 years. Everything works the same. The only difference is that as you can see here, the only real difference is the speedometer goes to 120 miles an hour instead of 100, but everything works exactly the same. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna pause this for a second, and I'm actually gonna put my old instrument cluster back in and put my dash back together, because I've had it apart for a couple of weeks because I've had a wire issue and I've been trying to track it down. So I'm gonna put the old cluster back in and put the bezel back on too, so you know how to take that all apart, because there's wire harnesses. Here's a wire harness for your light switch and your 4x4, and if you got a cargo light or anything, or you got a passenger side airbag, you got to take all that wire harness apart or unplug it from every switch before you pull the bezel completely off. So what I'm going to do is reassemble my dash and then take it all apart so you guys know what to do. So give me a minute. I'm going to pause it while I do this real quick, and then I'll start from the beginning on how to take it apart. And then we're probably just going to move to the bed of the truck where I have the other gauge cluster sitting, and I'll show you how to change your odometer. Because if you want to keep your mileage, now you see my truck has almost 260,000 miles on it, and that's the original odometer. I swapped it out into this cluster. It's really easy to do. So I'm going to show you how to do that too before I end the video. So if you bear with me for a minute, I'll be right back with a dash reassembled, and we'll start this instrument cluster swap out to the Cadillac Escalade gauge cluster. Alright guys, there you have it. The dash is back together real quick like, and as you can see, when I swapped it out, the Cadillac Escalade had only 172,000 miles on it. So we're going to begin the video here on how to do this dash cluster. The first thing is you got to get this whole bezel off, and it's really easy. There's a bunch of clips that just clip out, and then it comes out. Of course, it actually clips in there, but I just set it in there because I already had it apart. So this is your airbag and my cargo light and my special switch for my train horns and my 4x4 light, and that's already unplugged, but I did plug in my light switch. But if you pull them out, they're not in your way anymore. But as you can see, the wire harnesses, it's all right back here. And I can get one of them up here. This is the cargo light. The airbag is yellow, and you want to make sure you don't mess that up. But it's real easy. You plug them in, and then you just take a flathead screwdriver and pry it apart, and it pops it right out. So now that we have this loose, we're going to now have to open the door, which is going to turn that dumb buzzer on. What you want to do is you got to turn your ignition on, and you might want to chock your back wheel, because in order to get this to come out, you have to tilt your wheel down. Of course, my radio is on, and take it all the way down just to clear the dash. When you finish popping it out, just slide it out, and it picks right up. And you put it back in the park, and you're okay. And turn the key off. Now I'm gonna go over here, open the door. And sorry if it gets a little jiggly here. So the only connection I have left is the light switch right there. So if you don't drop your screwdriver. What you got to do, you got to get in here with your flathead screwdriver and push down, because now the camera's not going to focus. Push the tab in and pop it out, and that pops the wire harness right out, and that works on all of the switches you have. And now the bezel is ready to come off. So you take your bezel and you put it in the back seat out of the way, and that leads you to your cluster. Now your cluster has 4 screws. Four screws in it to hold it into the car. Pretty much, where's my screwdriver or my ratchet at? You got 1 here, here, and 2 on the other side here and here. So we're going to take all those screws out. It is a 7mm socket, which I happen to have on a ratcheting screwdriver, which is nice. And there it went. Alright, we won't be putting that bolt in until I go find it. So we're going to sit here and take all the 4 screws out. And that frees your gauge cluster up. And I don't know where that screw went, but we'll worry about that later. So next you're going to want to get your cluster out. So what you do is you grab it and it just pulls right out. And I don't know why that buzzer has to sound. There you go. Your gauge cluster slides right out. Now we're going to go back to the back of the truck here, so I'm going to pause it for a second because I can't take that stupid beeping, so I can close the door. And we're going to work on changing the odometer out so that your mileage stays the same. So give me 1 second. We'll be back on the back of the truck. So we're back here now. As you can see, I got the gauge cluster here, and it still has the plastic, clear plastic cover plate on it. Now your Cadillac Escalade cluster is not going to come with those white stickers on it. That's just a vinyl sticker. I like white face gauges. I think they look nice, but they don't in this cluster because you can see there's little lines, and I'll bring it a little closer, but you can see that the stickers aren't lined up exactly right. There's gaps in it and everything like that. I don't think it looks very good. And I actually have a small cover plate, but that's for another video. So we're going to take this plastic cover off. There's 3 push tabs. Here's 2. What you do is just push down and forward, and it releases it. Well, it's supposed to anyways. Releases that side. Then there's one right here, and then you push that, and this plastic, all it is black and clear plastic. It just covers the whole face. So now we get to the old faded needles and 100-mile-an-hour speedometer. So what you're going to want to do is this face pops off. Each gauge is held into the back with these metal things. Now you can push them out that way, or I just get a flathead screwdriver right here, and I start on the corner and I work my way in, and I slowly pry the gauges up, and they will just pop right out. And once you get going, you can actually do it without the screwdriver, just like that. And there's one electrical connection in here for that runs your odometer, and that just pushes. It's just a push pin. See if I can get it out. it's just a push pin. That's all it is. It's a little push pin. So that takes the whole face, and you have your speedometer, your tachometer, all your gauges, your odometer, which is what we're going to work on changing out. So these are a torque, star head, or they're a little hex head, but I don't know what size the hex head is. I have a torque set, and it is a T15 torque bit. And what you're going to do is you're going to take two screws out. Take these two screws out. Here's one, and the other one is here. And you take those screws out, and the odometer literally just comes right out. Now it's also hooked to your tripometer by this little red coupler. So when you take it out, just like that, you have to remember which way it was, because this shaft right here, I don't know if it'll focus, but this shaft has a flat spot on it, and red coupler has a flat spot on it, and they just sync together. So then you're gonna go over here, and you don't mix these up because your calibration comes from the circuit board in here. So if you put the 120 mile speedometer face on this one, it's not going to read proper, because this calibration is for 100 miles an hour. Some people have asked before, well, what about your speedometer sensor in your transmission? That just sends a signal, pulses. It reads a pulse off of a metal wheel in the transmission as it goes by a sensor. And that transmits it to the computer, and it transmits it to here. This picks up the pulses and changes it into a digital signal, and it runs the motor up and down the speedometer. So you don't want to mess up your gauge sets. You want to keep them together. So we're going to take the gauge cluster apart here. Now this is my spare. I have another 125 mile an hour. They're cheap at the junkyard. I got them for like 35 bucks. So we're going to pry this one apart. Same method. Just slowly, I mean really slowly, because this is all plastic. And one wrong move and you can crack it. Slowly start working your way down. And boom, same thing. Same plastic click. So this speedometer or odometer is set for 146. So what we're going to do is the same thing. We're going to take the torque bit, and we're going to take out these screws. Same set of screws. And then the same thing, it slides right out, and you want to swap it for your other one. So you make sure that your little wheel's lined up, and this one isn't. You can turn them by hand to line up the little there we go, the little red thing, which it didn't quite line up yet. And there we go. Sometimes if you hold it, the red thing will slide back down in there. So then you take your screws, put your screws back in, tighten them down. And there, your odometer is switched now to record the actual mileage that's on your truck. And then this one I'm going to leave apart because I don't really need it together right now. So what you do is you take the, right down there at the bottom of the board is the plug for that. So we're going to clip that back in, just like that. And the wire gets run underneath the peg. And then you slap it back together and just gently push it back in. You'll feel it slide into place. So that's how to change the odometer out on one of these clusters. And I'm going to go back in the truck here, and I'm actually going to put my cluster back in the dash and put it back together so you can see. So give me one more second and we'll be back on the video. Alright, so we're back here in the beeping truck. So we're going to slide my cluster back into position. Now you see this wire plug here that stays in here, and the back of the dash has the connection, and there's no clipping for that. It just, as soon as you press it in, everything connects back up. And I don't know why it was beeping like that for that. So that is how you install and change your odometer from the factory 100-mile-an-hour instrument cluster to the Caddy Escalade instrument cluster. It's really not that hard. And when you reassemble your dashboard, just remember, you know, each plug is, you know, the black is for my cargo light, the yellow is always airbag. Yellow is always airbag. So if you have a passenger side airbag, you have a switch for that. You have yellow, and the white one is for my 4x4. And then over here, the big one here is for the light switch. So as long as you plug all them back in, everything will still work. And but I've been running this dash cluster for over 3 years, like I said, and I like the white face, but as you can see, you know, there's a line here. Nothing lines up exactly like they make it look on eBay when you buy this stuff. And the needles were actually white, and white on white during the day, it really doesn't work. And when I had the lights on, the needles were really bright compared to the gauges, or compared to the numbers reading. So I painted them red, which dimmed it down enough. In fact, some of it's too dark, you can almost not see the needles, but they're easier to see in the daytime. So, you know, that's your option, what you want to do with that in your illumination. But I can tell you what, if you decide to do this white face sticker stuff, the guy who had this truck before me put in an aftermarket radio with a red lighting in it. So he changed all the lighting to red LED back here. And it was okay until I put these stickers on, because the black is translucent and the white underneath is translucent. And individually they let plenty of light through, but when you stack them, I could barely see it. And that's part of my issue, is that I wired up a bunch of LEDs on the back that were brighter, and they sort of shine through better, but now after 3 years I've got dead spots and flickering ones that when it's on for a while at night, you know, this will start flickering behind there. And these never line up exactly with the numbers and hash marks. They never line up. I even had this face cover off with a light shining behind it when I put them on, because it's just a sticker. It's a vinyl sticker. And all I do to put them on is I get a little bit of soapy water, I wipe down the whole thing, make sure it's clean, and I spray up the back a little bit because it's sticky. And then I just put it on here, and I put it around the needles. I didn't pull the needles off. I just slid them out to where I could slide. The hole is bigger than the base of the needle. And I just slid it over there, and then I slid it around the back with the light on behind it and lined it up the best that I could, because they're not made exactly right. And I do have something coming in the mail to fix all this, and that'll probably be the next video. If it gets in here before next Friday, I will have a video on it. So I'm not going to reassemble the dash because it's the same. Put your 4 screws back in, plug in all your switches, and put your bezel back on. But since I'm working on a wiring issue right now, it keeps blowing my luminescent fuse for just the cluster. I have radio, I have a door switch still lights up, and all my outside lights work, but the dash illumination, I can't drive at night. I just don't drive at night right now. It doesn't get dark till like 10 o'clock at night, so I'm always home by 6 or 6:30. So we're going to put an end to the video for right now, because that's all that you're going to have to worry about if you change to the Cadillac Escalade dash cluster. Everything works like normal. Your speedometer won't need to be recalibrated. You know, all your gauges will work exactly the same. You just have, instead of stopping at 100 miles an hour, it'll say 120. And whether you take your truck that fast or not, that's up to you guys. So I hope this video is enlightening for you guys. Until the next one, have a good day.